Alright, what is going on? What's happening? How's everyone doing today? My name is Chuck and welcome back to a brand new video. Alright fellas, today we got a brand new update here in Warzone. So we're going over my top 5 best classes you guys can use here in Warzone. You guys love when I make these videos, so of course I continue to pump them out, and I got some incredible setups here for you guys today to use that I know you're going to absolutely love. But before any farther, make sure you guys go and drop a like, and I promise you win your next game of Warzone. And also subscribe with all notifications turned on. We're on the road to 800,000 subscribers. And real quick, I want to mention there's something really interesting and cool that I want to share with you guys, and that is recently I got my PC optimized, so when I'm playing Warzone and everything, I get significantly more frames on Warzone, on Vanguard, so on and so forth. It's made a massive difference in the overall smoothness and playability of the game, and I want to be able to share with you guys how I got that done. If you're interested in doing that, especially before that Vanguard Warzone integration comes out, make sure you guys go head over to sensequality.com. It'll be the top link in the description below. Great people, great service, and I mean, it'll really make your computer and Warzone just run that much better. Now that being said, let's get into these classes. Okay, so the first class we're gonna get into here is going to be one of my personal favorite ARs to use right now in Warzone, especially after the update, and that's going to be the Ground 5.56. There's a few different ways you guys can run this weapon. It doesn't change, drastically, but you're going to be able to change out, whether you're going to use iron sights or optics or so on and so forth. And I'll be sure to go over all that stuff so you guys have the pretty much the best of both worlds. You want to use it more of a medium range or a longer range version of the gun, I'll give you guys all that stuff. So first thing here is going to be the muzzle category. Of course, what we're going to do is we're going to throw on the monolithic suppressor, sound suppression, damage range, of course, the classic attachment to use on any of the Modern Warfare ARs, SMGs, LMGs, whatever it may be. There's a few different exceptions because some of the guns, like namely the Odin, have a colossal suppressor, and which is better than the monolithic, but pretty much for everything else, this is going to be the main attachment you guys should be running. So of course, we're going to throw on the monolithic here, as this gives us, the pluses we want, and the cons are entirely okay. It really doesn't do anything. I really don't notice much at all. So after that, we're going to go into the barrel section, and what we have in here is a couple of different options. What I used to run way back was the FSS 20.8 Nexus barrel, and I've seen some people try to run that, but I will tell you what right now is that you guys should only exclusively be running the Tempest 26.4 Archangel barrel, as this is just by far the best barrel out there. And also to mention that this thing has incredible iron sights, so if you want to be able to run this with incredibly clean iron sights, you're going to have to use the Archangel barrel, and that is the reason I would only ever choose the Tempest. And you're never going to make this into an SMG. It's just not beneficial. Don't ever do that. Only ever use this as a medium to a longer range AR, and that's just pretty much what the Growl was going to be good for. I've seen people try to make it into an SMG by using different barrels and stuff. It's just not worth it. You are going to get outgunned in every single instance by so many different SMGs in this game. Don't ever do that. After that, we're going to go into the underbarrel section, and we're going to throw on the Commando foregrip. The Commando foregrip is incredible for this gun. Super easy to use. I mean, it's a very early level unlock, so if you guys are still leveling this gun up, you guys should definitely go ahead and at least use the Commando foregrip for that recoil stabilization and aiming stability. I mean, you don't got to go crazy with it and run the Merc foregrip, the Cronin Shark 2, the Ranger. That's just completely overkill. It's going to slow you down way too much. It's not going to give you nearly enough benefit for what it's actually going to do. The Commando is going to be perfect. It's hardly going to slow you down at all, so I'd recommend running the Commando. After that, we're in the magazine section, and if you guys watch the channel frequently, you probably know what I'm about to say. I'm a 60-round magazine kind of guy, so we're going to run that 60-round magazine, and this is going to be incredible. Absolutely, the 60 rounds on this gun. I don't believe there's a reason to run 50. I mean, we're not playing solos. I mean, just because we don't play solos over here. We're playing duos, trios, quads. We like to get a lot of kills. We like to be able to slay out, and you can't really do that as much in solos. It's a lot less fun, at least to me. My personal opinion. I just don't like solos a lot. So if you're running solos, maybe a 50. But if you're running anything else other than that, which is pretty much everything I play, then you should be indeed running the 60. After that, we have our final attachment here, which is either going to be an optic or a rear grip or even a laser. So I'll kind of break that down for you. So if you're trying to go for a long range build on this gun, you're probably going to want to use the VLK 3x optic, and that's going to be incredible. What I've also seen people do is run the Corp Combat Hollow Sight, as that works very well as well. But for me personally, I don't necessarily run the Growl with an optic. What I do prefer to run it with is actually a rear grip, and that's going to be the XRK Void 2 rear grip for that ADS speed and sprint to fire speed, because I love those Growl iron sights. But if you don't actually like the rear grip, you want something that's going to do something very similar, you can also go up into the laser section and potentially throw on the tack laser, which will also increase your ADS speed, your aiming stability, and aim locking steadiness. It'll make this gun more of a laser beam, and of course it'll increase your ADS. Just the downside is that people are going to be able to see your laser. For me personally, I think the rear grip is a little bit better. I vibe with it just a little bit better. I don't think there's any sort of statistical real advantage to using one or the other, but for me, the rear grip, the XRK Void 2 is going to be where it's at. So hope you guys do enjoy this build. Definitely go try it out. Absolutely incredible. I'll give you guys a couple of different options in here. super good. Okay, so now let's talk about a gun that's actually really solid that I don't see getting enough love, and that's going to be the Cold War Bullfrog. I see a lot of people using the SMGs, like, you know, of course, the OTS-9, the MAC-10, the Cold War MP5, but I don't really see the Bullfrog getting as much use, but it's still incredibly good, and I've been able to get some pretty awesome gameplay with it here, even after all the updates, the patches, the buffs, the nerfs, anything else like that. So let's actually just jump into this here. First thing in that muzzle category, of course, we're going to be throwing on the Groove Suppressor. That sound suppression, vertical recoil, control, bullet velocity, and effective damage range. You can't go wrong with this. I mean, this is just going to be the best thing out there for this thing. Definitely don't want to use the sound suppressor. This really isn't good anymore. It hasn't been for a while, ever since like Season 4 Reloaded, when they messed with all the different stuff in there. It really just hasn't been good, so always run that Groove Suppressor. After this, we're going to get into that barrel section, and we're going to go down to the very bottom here. We're in that 7.4 Task Force barrel for effective damage range, bullet velocity, and that strafe speed. You can't go wrong with the Task Force. I mean, it's just gonna be the best one out there. I mean, all the rest of the ones in here, I mean, you could use, I guess, while you're leveling up. But to be honest with you, the Task Force, I mean, when you combine damage range, bullet velocity, and strafe speed, I mean, you can't go wrong there. Like, that's just the best one out there. And that vertical and horizontal recoil control, I mean, it's got hardly anything anyways, so you're really not going to notice much at all. So after that, what we're going to do is go to the underbarrel, and we're going to use the Bruiser Grip for the increased movement speed and hipfire accuracy. I love being incredibly agile out there when I'm using my Bullfrog or just an SMG in general. That's the point. Usually when I'm running around and, you know, on Rebirth or something like that, I whip out my SMG just so I can move around faster, because that increased movement speed over my AR, which is designed to be a little bit heavier, because it's obviously supposed to be better at longer ranges, and I don't have attachments to increase my speed on that, whereas on the SMGs I do. So the Bruiser Grip is going to help for that, and we can skip the magazine, go straight to the rear grip, because the magazine has 50 rounds in its stock, so we don't have to waste an attachment on a magazine. About the only thing I'd potentially think of doing is maybe just adding on the regular fast mag, and that's just because, I mean, sometimes the Bullfrog, you know, reload can kind of get you, and maybe that's what you would substitute the rear grip with, is maybe a magazine attachment. But we definitely on this are going to run the Serpent Wrap here for the increased ADS time. This is going to lower your sprint to fire just ever so slightly. It's okay. We're going to totally fix that here in just a second. But the Serpent Wrap, I think, is awesome, and I really, really like it. And for our final attachment in the stock section, we're going to throw in the KGB Skeletal Stock for the increased ADS firing move speed, aim walking move speed, and sprint to fire time. Overall, a banger setup here on the Bullfrog. Definitely incredible. You guys should go ahead and try this one out. I love the Bullfrog. I still do till this day. I think it's amazing. And this is just a banger of a weapon. Definitely go try it out here. Love this. Okay, so let's jump into our next gun here, which is going to be the Cold War C58. This is largely up in competition here with guns like the EM2, as they're slower firing but heavy hitting, and this is going to be no exception here. I mean, this is really a solid assault rifle, incredibly accurate. It's just got a tad bit of recoil, but we're going to try to mitigate that as much as possible, and you're going to be able to have a great AR to use that maybe you don't use as frequently. So let's get you into this setup. First thing in that muzzle category is going to be the Agency Suppressor. This is going to be hugely beneficial, of course, for ARs, because, you know, obviously it gives you, that vertical recoil control, that bullet velocity and effective damage range. Pretty much all things we really want here, apart from it's giving us sound suppression, which is, you know, what a suppressor is supposed to do. We got a lot of pros here, hardly any cons. So that's going to be our choice. Into the barrel section, we're going to throw on the Task Force barrel. This is going to give us bullet velocity, horizontal recoil control, effective damage range, and vertical recoil control. You can't go wrong with this thing here. It's going to have, of course, some downsides, but we're not trying to go for a maximum mobility here. And frankly, on this gun, you're definitely going to have to run the Task Force barrel. There's no exceptions to it. There's no messing around with different stuff. About the only thing I've seen people do otherwise is run the Ranger, but to be honest with you, I would stick with the Task Force. I mean, it's even sometimes a bit, troublesome for me to control that recoil, be, perfectly on target. So I just opt to go with the Task Force 10 times out of 10, and it's done me wonders. In the underbarrel section, we have a few different options in here, but pretty much only one of them is going to be good, and that's going to be the Field Agent grip here for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. I mean, like I said, with the barrel and the suppressor, you kind of have to go with those things. They're not really negotiable, just because, like, we're trying to control this gun, because it's going to hit really hard. As long as you can hit your shots, like, as long as you can be accurate, it's going to be super useful. I really like this gun, so the Field Agent is going to be where it's at for this. And after that, we're going to move to the magazine, and we're going to be using the 45-round drum, though you could definitely run the Stanag 55-round drum. For me personally, I feel like I ADS a little bit too slow when I use the 55-round drum, so I like going to the 45. And keep in mind, I do play Rebirth a lot, so for me, 45 rounds this works incredibly well. Though you could definitely run 45 on Verdansk, no issue. It just comes down to I like having mobility when I can get it without sacrificing range and recoil on my ARs, and so this is one of those guns where I feel like 45 rounds is okay. Also, the fire rate's not super high, so you can definitely get away with it. So I'd recommend the 45 round magazine on this gun. And lastly, in this, we're going to throw on an optic because you frankly need one on the C58. So we're going to throw on the Axle Arms 3 times. Overall, the Axle Arms is my favorite optic to use on any of the Cold War ARs. It just is, maybe minus like a microflex LED, but I would never recommend to run a microflex on this gun, especially if you're going to be running the gun like a true AR with this build. Don't ever do that. Keep an actual scope on there. So the Axle Arms 3 times is going to be where it's at, and now it's you guys should always run this. Like seriously, always run this. This is a truck, a tank of a build. This, you're just gonna, you know, mow through everybody. It's awesome. Try it out. All right, next up, I'm probably catching y'all a little bit off guard with this one, and we're gonna be using the AMP pistol. This is a machine pistol that was ungrounded for quite a while. I literally maxed this thing out just by using it as ground loot. So that's just how many kills I was getting with it, because there's so many variants on the ground that were really good. And let's give you guys a setup for this, because when I run tempered, this is like my go-to secondary, and it's almost like having a pocket submachine gun, and it's like really good. So if you guys aren't using this thing, you run tempered, throw this on there, and you'll be fine. First thing in the muzzle category, we're gonna throw in the agency suppressor here. Like for pretty much everything else, like your ARs, SMGs, this is going to benefit just the same. So always run the agency. This is going to be the best thing out there. After that, in the barrel section, we have a couple of different options in here, but much like the other guns, we're going to run the task force barrel, effective damage range, bullet velocity, and strafe speed. Overall, it is a pistol, but we still need to be able to have enough, you know, damage range and all that stuff to be competitive at those closer to, sometimes out just outside that close range. You can hit those shots with this gun. I mean, you may not be able to take everybody out because it's not going to have a, you know, a 45, 60 round magazine, but if you're going to be able to hit your shots in that closer to medium-ish range, I mean, you're going to be able to take some people out, and it's kind of crazy that a pistol is going to be this good, and the AMP genuinely is. I think it's a little bit underrated. So after that, we're going to go into the laser section, and we're trying to get a little bit more movement speed out of this gun. So we're going to throw on the Tiger Team Spotlight for the increased movement speed and aim walking movement speed. You're going to get a decent amount of movement speed out of this thing in general, but to increase that further, you're going to be able to run the Tiger Team, and you're able to move around the map quite efficiently, and I really like that. That's why I always YY, slide, cancel, so on and so forth, and people ask me why I do that. It's just to basically maneuver around the map more efficiently, and that's why I do it. And of course, to be able to help me also, we're running that Tiger Team. That's just going to aid me being able to do that a little bit better. So the Tiger Team is what we're going to be running here. Of course, people are going to be able to see you, flashlight, and all that stuff, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. After that, we're going to go to the magazine, and we're going to throw on the Salvo 30 round fast mag, not the Stenag 30 round. I'd run the fast mag here, particularly just because you got 30 rounds in the magazine. You're going to be up in close quarter situations when you're using this, and there's a high chance, high probability that somebody else is going to push you, and they're going to make sure that you're out of bullets. So if you have that 30 round, you may not be able to get that reloaded in time, and so I'd highly suggest you guys run the Salvo 30 round fast mag. I just think it to be beneficial. When I run a gun that's got low ammo count in its magazine, I generally speaking try to pair a sleight of hand or something with it, just to be able to combat that, you know, more or less that downside. So that's what we're going to do here for this pistol, as a 30 round pistol magazine is actually really solid, and I really can't complain. So the Salvo 30 fast is really clutch, and I've used it plenty, so I think this is really solid. To finish off this build here in the rear grip section, we're throwing the Serpent Wrap here for that increased ADS time, and that's gonna be our final attachment. I mean, this is just gonna be a banger of a build here for this amp. I mean, I use this, like I said, on my temper classes when I'm running around with like an EM2 or something like that. I mean, it's just disgusting how many people you can take out with an EM2, like an amp pistol. You're lethal at all ranges at that point. So we're on the Serpent Wrap on this thing, called a day, and this is gonna be an awesome setup for a gun that I actually really haven't covered here on the channel before, so go ahead and try this one out. Now for a tried and true favorite, pretty much a gun that everybody loves, and that's gonna be the Kilo 141. A lot of people love the Kilo because it's got very low recoil. You can manage it super easily. It's got a great damage profile. It's not gonna be at the very top of the pack, but it's also not gonna be at the bottom. It's just that upper middle, and more often than not, if you're hitting your shots, you're gonna come out on top with this gun. So let's jump into it here. First, that muzzle category, of course, got that mono. Don't really have to talk about that too much this year. I've covered it a couple times already. After that, in the barrel section, we're going to run actually the 19.8 Prowler barrel. This is going to be the task force equivalent on this gun. It's just going to be the largest barrel out there for that damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. The 16.6 SOCOM does everything the Prowler barrel does, but the SOCOM is just going to do less of everything, so maybe you could get away with this in public match multiplayer. But even then, I'd still recommend to run the Prowler barrel, as it's just going to make you overall overall more effective, and that's what I'm trying to get out of my AR. So the Prowler barrel is going to be the go-to on this thing. After that, in the underbarrel section, we're going to throw in the Commando foregrip here, recoil stabilization, and aiming stability. I mean, the Kilo just doesn't have much recoil. I've seen people run it without a foregrip. I personally have ran it without a foregrip before, and it is still manageable, though I have better recoil control than a lot of other people out there. So a lot of people just can't do it, and that's just entirely okay. I don't ever actually run the Kilo seriously without a foregrip. I just kind of like to experiment around every now and again, and I try it without. But the Commando foregrip here is going to be what I like to run, so I'd recommend that one. Don't go for anything else. It's just going to slow you down unnecessarily. Not worth it in any way, shape, or form. Run the Commando. After that, in the magazine section, we have a couple options in here that are going to be viable. One, not so much. The one that's not going to be viable is the 100-round drum magazine. This is absolutely ridiculous. I would genuinely never suggest to run the 100-round drum magazine ever. Don't ever do it. It's not worth it. You're going to slow yourself down. You're pretty much going to have like LMG mobility with this thing. It's just not it. And so I just would not recommend it at all. You try to run that 60-round magazine on this thing, and that's it. The 60, the 50 if you're running solos, but the 50 for the 60 for everything else. So just run that. I mean, I don't really feel like I have to explain this too much. I'm a 60-round magazine kind of guy, so I'm choosing this regardless. Even if I'm playing solos, I'm running the 60. Like, it's just what I do. But if you really want that mobility, you can run the 50. But I just recommend running the 60. So after that, to finish off this whole build here, we get an optic, of course. And you can either run the Corp Combat Hollow Sight, as this is beautiful, and I love running this on Rebirth, or if you really want to, you can go down here to the VLK 3x optic and get yourself a little bit more range, which is also pretty much like, this is like a very old meta build that people used to use way back in the earlier seasons of Warzone, because, I mean, just had no recoil. You pair this like the Modern Warfare MP5, that hipfire was kind of disgusting, and you had your overall meta setup right there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this build. If you guys have enjoyed this so far, give it a like, subscribe if you're brand new, turn on those post notifications, and just remember to cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.